Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Faisal Sami, CEO of Chicago Telerad. I want to welcome you to this video. It's kind of an introductory video, a little bit about myself, Chicago Telerad, and what is teleradiology and how do we get our start. So I have with me Jen and Rhonda from our licensing credentialing division. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So what's going to happen is we're just going to do this interview style. They're going to shoot some questions and we're going to talk and kind of have a banter back and forth. So let's get started, guys. Go ahead. Shoot away.
I actually have got a great starting off question. And for everyone out there, I'm sure they'd be interested in how you, Dr. Sami, got started in teleradiology.
So I did my residency at UIC and started in 1998, finished in 2002. And kind of during my senior year, I was in negotiations with a hospital in Terre Haute, Indiana, to do radiology work as a hospital employed radiologist down there. And so they said, well, you know, why don't you come down, do a locums? I got my medical license at the end of my residency, and I took permission from the program director, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. So one of my vacation weeks, I went down and started working there, and they were in a film-based environment. So the traditional model, putting up film on an alternator for playing films, ultrasound, MRI, CT, the usual way things were done in the 90s. And I saw off in the corner one of the radiologists looking at a laptop and looking at images, and he was scrolling through a CT image. I asked him, like, what is that? And he said, well, these are the images from the night before. I was on call last night. And so whatever the ER would send over to the CT department, we'd read them at night and call the ER doctor with a report. So at the end of my locums time there, I asked the administrator, I said, well, hey, what about just getting me a laptop, and what about me reading from Chicago? And there's like, yeah, there's no reason why not. You're going to be full-time with us at the end of your fellowship. So we could do that. So I negotiated an arrangement to get a laptop and a pay-per-click model, essentially. And we started doing that. So that was kind of my intro to teleradiology. I was kind of moonlighting from home. I'd go work and then come back and in the evening do cases, largely CTs, MRIs, and ultrasound. I did that in my fellowship year as well. So it was a great intro to, you know, kind of doing the whole teleradiology thing back in 2002, 2003. And we had very elemental hardware and software at that time. We basically just had a laptop with a point-to-point connection. And so that was kind of the start, the genesis. And after that, I worked 3 years at the hospital, did a little dabbling with a few teleradiology outfits. I had a friend of mine, his name is Dr. Mahip Goyal. He started a company called Nighthawk Pros. So kind of doing the same thing in the evenings, coming and doing CTs, MRIs with Mahip and whatnot. And so in 2006, when I finished, I decided to start my own teleradiology practice. And I had a couple of hospitals, some imaging centers, and so forth, and I just did it for myself, not working with any firm or anything like that. But about 2007, 2008 timeframe, I met Paul Berger at Nighthawk Radiology, and we hit it off, and I joined Nighthawk. I think I was radiologist number 50 around there sometime back then. And I worked for a big box teleradiology company, Nighthawk, who then got sold to Virtual Radiologic. And I worked with them for several years. And then back in 2017, I started my own firm, Chicago Telerad. We changed the model a little bit. I worked all kinds of different teleradiology models, you know, doing the mobile imaging centers for myself, cobbling that together to working for a big box firm, Nighthawk, then VRAD. And now we have a kind of a different model of reading. It allows me to work for multiple clients at the same time. We use scribes in-house in our own professional reading center in an office, which is a little different than the typical basement radiologist model, one station, one dictaphone, one work list. I'm able to service multiple clients at the same time using scribes, and we'll talk about that later in another video. But that's kind of in a nutshell how I got started and kind of where I am right now.
It sounds really interesting, but are you limited as to what type of imaging you can read?
No, not at all. In fact, so I trained in all modalities, and typical teleradiology does a lot of ER work, you know, so bread and butter, CTs, ultrasounds, plain films, that's probably about 80% of what we do. And, you know, some MRI, some nuclear medicine. So depending on what the radiologist is trained in, I trained in and I kept my skills up in all modalities. So I'll do all general ER, emergency trauma. I did my fellowship in MSK, so I do a lot of MSK MRI. I also kept up with my mammography, do MQSA certified, keep doing all that stuff. So I kind of keep my skills as broad as possible and do everything. That's what I advise radiologists and teleradiologists, to not let go of those skill sets, because you're going to find them useful throughout your career. So.
Especially, I would find that there's a huge demand for people to read the mammographies these days too.
Yeah. A lot of neuro-rads I find lately tend to let go of the mammography, but rads in general, if telerads especially, they think that just because they're not in a hospital, they want to let go of mammography. Mammography, for some reason, is disliked by a lot of radiologists. I tend to like it. I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, I've done it all through, and I've done everything, biopsies and the whole gamut. I mean, it's just another one of the specialties in radiology, and I enjoy it, so I keep doing it. So
yeah, that's great.
So yeah, what else? Go ahead, shoot.
Well, I was thinking, you have people who are ending their fellowship, or they're in their residency, and everyone probably thinks like, oh, I'll just have a hospital job, I'll work in the hospital as a radiologist. So
yeah,
like, regarding making the transition as to, do I work full-time in the hospital, or do I go into teleradiology, like somebody who was on the fence about the two, what kind of advice would you be able to give them?
Yeah,
based on your personal experience, having worked in the hospital and then transitioned to teleradiology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I get messages on LinkedIn all the time. Residents, fellows, they ask me this question. They're like, all right, I'm just finishing my residency. I'm just finishing my fellowship. I want to go into teleradiology. I like the lifestyle. I like, the location independence, the income producing nature. And what I tend to advise people, I say, look, if you're coming right out of residency, you're going to have a hard time, because it's really, teleradiology is an eat what you kill world, and it's a meritocracy. So the faster you are, the more efficient you are, and the higher quality you have, the better time you're going to have doing it. And so the first thing I'd tell newly graduating residents is, think about doing a fellowship. It's going to distinguish you head and shoulders above and beyond the general radiologists out there. I get that all the time. Like, whenever I'm talking to a client for teleradiology clients, they're asking me always like, hey, do you have any subspecialty expertise? I tell them the MSK, they love that. And then I tell them, by the way, I also do mammography. They love that as well, in addition to all the general ER, trauma, general radiology work. So you want to have as many feathers in your cap as possible. Don't think that going into it, you're going to let go of something that you didn't like in residency. You may find that going through your practice, you may actually think that, this is not as bad as I thought it was. So that's the training aspect. Of the practice aspect of it, I would tell people, you know what, you need to go in the hospital for a couple of years, really kind of get the relationship, between radiologist, referring physician down, understand that dynamic, understand what the concerns of the various different specialties are from a referring physician point of view. So the ER doc, they want quick turnaround time, they want accurate reads, they want to be able to talk to you if they have a question about something emergent. The cancer doc may want something more involved, like they're looking at multiple comparisons. So understanding their perspective, where they're coming from, will make you a better they'll have a better relationship with your referring physician, and make you a better radiologist in terms of providing them value. So get a couple of years of hospital experience under your belt. Now, there are people who just go right out of residency and they go right into teleradiology, and that's fine too. My experience is, just from the radiologists I've hired over the years, and my own experience, you're probably better rounded getting a couple of years of hospital experience on your belt and then going off and making the big bucks. So
then what would be the benefit of leaving the security of the hospital to join teleradiology?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mindset shift. Like, so are you kind of really focused to work in a job? Like, if you have a jobs mentality, it can work in the teleradiology world, but you're really kind of on your own. You got to understand that, you're kind of entering into a business. you can be a 1099 entrepreneur, essentially. There's more outfits out there, typically big box companies that are pushing the W-2 model, but understand, like, you're kind of still not supported to the level that you'd be in the hospital. Now, there may be some things that they do offer, like health insurance and benefits and whatnot, but that's going to come with a lot of restrictions. You know, what hours you're going to work, what holidays you can take off, that sort of thing. It's also true for 1099 radiologists with big box companies. They typically, you know, want half the holidays, weekends, half the weekends, that sort of thing. Typically, it's a 7 on, 7 off kind of model, and understandably so. Like they have clients that have needs that have to be covered, so that's kind of part of the deal. But if you're in a hospital environment, you know, there's reasons to want to practice in a hospital, and there's reasons to want to practice teleradiology, and it really kind of depends on your mindset, where you are at. If you just need security, if like security is your number one concern, there are ways to establish security in teleradiology. Just, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want to just have a secure job and really not look for anything beyond that, then that's possible. If you're really looking to be an entrepreneur, a teleradiology entrepreneur, and grow something for yourself and potentially build an enterprise, and you don't have to build the next big box company. So there's an in-between space from teleradiology job to big box company. There's a wide space in between where you could build a practice for yourself, where you have secure income for yourself, but also bring on other radiologists to your team. And it takes a little bit of education and knowledge and entrepreneurship, management, but not much. It's not that hard. It can be learned and trained upon. And here at Chicago Telerad and Telerad Launch, we're in the business of introducing people to teleradiology, but also helping them launch their own teleradiology careers and build their own practices. So that's kind of in a nutshell. You know, I guess it's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of...
Sounds like you definitely have to be self-motivated.
Yeah, for sure. Self-motivation is a key part of everything, right? Like anything worthwhile doing, you're going to have that. You're going to have to bring that energy and juice to what you do. So some people have it, some people can be trained to have it, and other people's they're just not going to do it. So be real honest with yourself as to who you are and just work that plan.
So like you had, you know, briefly touched on, you know, working a job as a teleradiologist, and then you kind of also threw into the conversation having your practice as a teleradiologist. So
yeah.
I guess if you could just kind of clear up a little confusion if somebody didn't know, like, job versus practice, you know?
Right. So that's a great question, because as physicians, we're trained job, right? We're just literally trained to be employed. And so nobody really thinks about, hey, could I take my practice and actually turn it into a business? So the idea that you could do something else beyond just working a job, it's a little foreign to a lot of doctors. Like a lot of doctors probably listening to this and like, well, how can you go from being just a jobs-oriented teleradiologist to a teleradiology entrepreneur? Again, understanding, like, I have no intention to be the next big box company. I'm no intention to be the next VRAD or compete with them or anything like that. I just want security for myself, my practice, my radiologists that I have on my team. And I may never go to beyond 10 radiologists, but that's plenty, right? To have security and income and build wealth, right? So that's the conversation. So I think for radiologists who want to build something for themselves, there's that in-between space where you can have a little bit of that entrepreneurship, but also the security and whatnot. So I think maybe I veered off your question. What was, just repeat that.
Like, so you said like a job versus a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes. How do you go to a practice? So one of the key
yes.
things I found, one of the key big differentiators with us is the workflow model, right? So I use scribes in my practice, and we practice from a professional office center in a teleradiology theater. So I have 655-inch screens that I look at, that I'm sitting and just stationary. I'm not walking anywhere, right? And then I have 6 scribes who sit behind me, and we share a screen. So I have 3 screens on the bottom, 3 screens on the top, and I'm sitting there in front of the screens. And my 6 scribes are behind me, and we each share a screen. So they're able to display 6 cases to me at the same time. Now, I will So it's kind of a parallel processing model. However, I actually am able to look at the images more per patient because I'm not looking at any work lists. I'm not looking at any, I'm not doing any QC. Like I'm not, like the scribe is going to look for the recons, the history and all that, and make sure that's all there before it even displays on my screen. So I know when I'm looking at the images, all the information is there, all the history, all the recons, all the images, everything's complete ready for me to go. Because
You just
as a,
focus
yeah,
on what you're doing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of just, I know that like what I'm looking at is good to go. Whereas when I was a basement radiologist working for a big box company, if I discovered that there was an issue with the case, I'd have to open a ticket or IM somebody, and it took my energy to kind of power that. Now, it would go off and, you know, be handled by support staff, but that wasted like 30 seconds to a minute of my time to deal with that. Whereas in my current scenario, I don't have that wastage of time. So anyway, going back to the reading center model, 6 scribes, 6 big screens that I'm looking at that are physicist certified and diagnostic quality. And I'm able to go through and look at, you know, one case at a time, spending more time on the images than I ever did on a whole, as in terms of report creation and image analysis. So one of my friends, Konsadiki, came in and observed what we were doing, and he actually timed the amount of time I spend on image analysis versus report creation. And his wife is also a radiologist, and so after he observed us, he observed his wife doing the same thing. And he found that I spent about 80% of my time on the images and image analysis and talking pathology, and 20% of my time on report approving, report analysis, that sort of thing. And when he timed his wife doing it, it was flipped. She was spending the majority of her time looking at the work list, looking at the report as it was being created, distracted away from the images. So that was an interesting flip. So my point in bringing this up now is that we discovered that having the 6 workstations actually allowed me to have 6 different clients potentially. And we did exactly that. So we have a separate client on each workstation. So while I'm reading for one client, the other client's images are also being populated, looked at, QC'd, and so forth. So it opened up a whole new world of entrepreneurial kind of opportunity. And I'm able to be kind of a half to 3/4 FTE with different clients, and allowed me to diversify my teleradiology income. So that's what I advocate for. I think in today's teleradiology environment, I think radiologists need to be looking at this as entrepreneurs and not just, you know, dependent on one stream of teleradiology income. This is what we teach, and this is what we help radiologists accomplish. So, so yeah, I hope I answered the question, I think.
You did, and more. So
And
we got
more,
very
yeah.
informational.
I editorialize a lot, so I kind of go off on tangents.
It's good. The
kind of
more
fun.
info, the better.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, just talking about all the 6 scribes and then, you know, like the 6 TVs and all of that, that means
Yeah.
a bunch more computers and stuff. So going into the teleradiology field, would you say that you have to be tech savvy, or do you have a tech person on hand? How do you handle like any type of technical issues or
Yeah, that's
anything of the
a
sort?
great question. So I'm not a technically savvy person. I mean, I can open email, check my Facebook account. I know how to log into the various different teleradiology packs and whatnot. Beyond that, like in terms of doing the training for the pack system. So whenever we bring on a new client, or if we have a new pack system involved, they send me all this training information. Like, here's these videos, watch this, and we're going to set up a Zoom conference and train you. I go, don't even involve me. I got my scribe here, who's my IT person. You get them trained, because they're only going to display the cases for me. I don't need to know any of that. I don't need to know the technical. All I need to know is the right-click menu, zoom, pan, and scroll, measure, and how-to units. And largely that function is very similar across different packs and teleradiology pack systems. It's pretty standard. It's like quick for me to learn. I typically spend maybe 10 minutes just learning those basic functionalities. And as I'm reading cases, I learn on the fly. So it works out just fine. And then they deal with any technical issues with the client. You know, something's down or there's a software update. It takes me out of all that nonsense. And I spend my time on what I'm designed to do, is image analysis.
Focus on the reading, yeah.
Yeah, talking pathology. So that's what I really like about our paradigm and the way we do things. So So, yeah.
So then getting back to hospital versus teleradiology, where can you make more money?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is it depends.
The bottom line, where's the money?
Where's the money, right? Everyone wants to kind of know. Like I get that question all the time. So it kind of depends. So if you're in a radiology group at a hospital where the payers are pretty favorable, like you're getting good revenues, whatnot, you're probably going to make more money if you just compared like, and I'm just going to compare hospital job to big box teleradiology. A lot of hospital-based radiologists, when they come into the teleradiology world, the first thing they're going to realize is they're going to have to work harder to make the same or more money, right? So that's where the income kind of is based on, you know, your efficiency. You know, I mean, you have benefits in the teleradiology world. As a basement radiologist working for a big box company, you know, you're not going to have as many distractions. You know, nobody's walking in. You're in your own home environment. You're not commuting, so you're saving a lot of time. So if you put that into reading more cases, then you know you may equal or maybe slightly exceed. So you have to have kind of a mindset of, hey, I'm just going to be working harder, but I'm going to have my own homework work environment, and I'm going to, you know, not have to commute. I don't have to put on a monkey suit. I don't have to go to meetings. I mean, there's a lot of unpaid meetings that radiologists have to go to. You know, your general med staff meeting, if you're on credentials and or med exec. I've been on all those. It's a lot of time that just, you know, is sucked away, and then you may have to come back to a work list that's, you know, 10 stats behind. So I mean, it happens all the time. Whereas a teleradiologist, you know, you have a dedicated work list. You probably have assistants if you're with a big box company, you know, operations staff and whatnot. They can handle things for you, and you know, you're in a different world. Your support. It's just a different mindset. So it takes a little bit of adjustment. Now, there's people who flourish. I know teleradiologists who've done extremely well and do extremely well in their own teleradiology practices or even at big box companies. So it's kind of a mind shift. So the bottom line answer is, if you're really productive, efficient, your quality is high, you can make more money. If you're not, if that's not you, and if your idea of practice is, you know, talking a lot with referring physicians, hanging out in the doctor's lounge, and pulling down a partner's salary, but not reading as many cases, then that might not be good for you. So it really depends on a mindset.
So, you know, you're talking about like the harder work putting into doing teleradiology. How would you say that that reflects on like your work life, home balance, vacation, travel? Are you able to still maintain all of those types of things?
In a different way. If you're at a practice at a hospital, you're probably going to split up, you know, hospital call, vacations, holidays, that sort of thing. That's kind of decided on. I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. If you're with a big box practice, you're probably going to be working half the holidays, half the weekends, you know, all that kind of stuff. If you're in your own independent teleradiology paradigm and you've got multiple clients, you can kind of play with that a little bit because everybody has different needs. And it's just a matter of finding the right fit for the different needs. And so I've done for years, I've worked 7 on, 7 off, 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. I now work only Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's because I just have enough volume coming in. I'm able to do that. I have the right mix of clients who have needs during those times. So it's a matter of finding those right clients. You can do that if you've been in the field a while. You make connections like anything else. I mean, your network is your net worth, essentially. That's been said before. And so it's the same in teleradiology. Like the more connections you have, the better you're able to carve out a work-life balance for yourself. For me, that means Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., having a long weekend every weekend. And then I'd probably take about 12 to 14 weeks off on top of that. I don't work any of the holidays. I don't need to anymore. So I have all that time off. So it's like anything else. I mean, you build a practice yourself. You get your clients and your relationships right, your staff and your team, and you can carve out for yourself a teleradiology practice and lifestyle that works for you. So
it sounds like in the beginning you kind of cater to the needs of where they need you to be reading the most, and then after you put in your time developing those relationships with the clients and get more clients, eventually you'll be able to shift around to your complete ideal schedule.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, at first you got to kind of start with what you can get, and that's fine. Like, you know, I mean, you start with if you need to do 7 on, 7 off. I mean, that's just where the market is. That's where a lot of the needs are. You gain a lot of volume, a lot of income relatively quickly. But then as you get to know clients and their needs and whatnot, you know, and as clients get bigger, they'll be like, yeah, we do need a full-time daytime reader, or we do need a telemammographer. There's specific teleradiology services designed around specialty, around times of day that are, you know, being read and so forth. So it's always possible to carve out a practice, a niche for yourself, depending on, you know, state licensure, time zone, a lot of different things. There's teleradiologists who live overseas and only do prelim reads. Like, that's been a well-known phenomenon all the way back from when Paul Berger started Nighthawk. There was we had a reading center in Australia and one in Zurich, and I think the Zurich one still in some form is there. I just met a few teleradiologists who work from Zurich still, and location dependent. Yeah, they're I mean, it's daytime there and it's nighttime here, and they do prelims, and we got tons of volume. So it kind of just depends on creating a strategy for yourself. And if you decide, I had a guy come to me, he's like, I only want to do prostate MRIs from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, nothing else. Well, that's a very, very niche-y specialty. But I was talking to a client the other day, and they're like, yeah, we get a fair amount of prostate MRIs. They don't need to be turned around right away. We could bunch them up and maybe do them 3 days a week. And he could do them, you know, during those hours. So there's a potential relationship, potential contract to be formed there. So kind of just depends what you want.
What about benefits like health insurance for you and your family, retirement, continuing education? How does that work?
Yeah, so again, it goes back to, you know, jobs versus entrepreneur. Like, decide what you are for yourself. Like, are you an employee? If that's just who you are, then, you know, hospital-based practice might be more suited to you. But there are outfits now that do offer health insurance and CME and all that kind of stuff. But my feedback to everyone would be, you can carve that out for yourself as an entrepreneur. I mean, health insurance isn't that pricey. You know, CME, how much do you spend? Like 5-10 grand a year. You know, your retirement plan, you get with a good financial planner, you can carve that all out for yourself. And you're much more independent, not dependent on your income source for your health insurance and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, we have everything independent. I mean, at Chicago Telerad, for us, we have our own health insurance options, our own retirement plan. We have everything that can be supported, you know, by our own practice. And so if it's a mindset shift, so if you're looking at going independent, you can have, you know, all that security for yourself. And obviously you got to maintain your relationship with your clients and whatnot. That's where the diversification comes in, reading for more than one client at a time. That's where you're going to build that security for yourself. I feel much more secure in my income, in my lifestyle, in my benefits than I ever did, because I have 9 clients that I read for, and I'm probably like a quarter to a 3/4. The piano machine going off here. No big deal. So having that income security comes from diversification and teleradiology income. So I think it's a very interesting topic in teleradiology. And people call me from time to time and say, hey, so how does this teleradiology income diversification work? And we'll probably have a separate video on that. So, yeah. What else? What else you got for me?
So, you know, you kind of talked a little bit about people living in Australia and like Zurich and all of that. So being a teleradiologist, you really can just do it from anywhere.
You can technically do it from anywhere in the world. There are some restrictions to be aware of, like, for example, as far as I know, and what the big box companies say is, you can't do Medicare final reads from overseas. You can only do prelims. I think that's kind of like the industry norm now. I don't know when that changed over, but I think about 2010, they started saying, you know, no more finals from overseas, maybe before, I can't remember, but I never did. My sister used to live in Dubai. So when I was with Paul Berger at Nighthawk, I had a workstation shipped over, and the IT staff had me set up in one of the rooms that she had, and I did all prelims from there. It was awesome because
That's so
I'd,
cool.
yeah, it'd be daytime over there and nighttime over here. And I would work from, I think I worked from like 9 a.m. to like 3 p.m. Dubai time. So that worked out pretty cool. And, you know, it paid for our vacations and then some. So we always had vacations paid for by my teleradiology work from Dubai. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So yeah, you
sounds
can, so the
cool.
bottom line is you can work. So in the US, you can live pretty much anywhere. You just have to be licensed in the state that you're residing in and the state that you're reading for, as far as I know. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for those who are completing their residency or fellowship in radiology and thinking of starting in
Yeah.
teleradiology?
Yeah. I think we touched on this a little bit before, but I would say, you know, don't plan on giving anything up. Like if you dislike something, you know, like if you dislike mammography or didn't really get much exposure to MSK, you know, don't think that you're going to go out there and you know, you're not going to do it ever, because you're going to come across clients that, you know, the more breadth you have, the more valuable you're going to be to them. And this is important because if you ever get to the point where you want to go to days, you know, a lot of outpatient imaging is MSK, you know, spines, neuro, and mammography. Like you're just going to be that much more valuable to clients if you have daytime or if you have a broader set of skills. So the first thing is don't give anything up. The second thing is get some hospital experience. It sounds, you know, people are kind of a little shocked about the whole hospital thing, but you need to understand the dynamics. But that's just my take on it. I mean, I'm sure there's, you know, residency grads who just go right into Telerad and they're doing just fine, but that's just my opinion. So I say those are the two things. The third thing I would say is if you're looking to just go like your first teleradiology job right out of, even if you're out of fellowship or if you're been in practice a while, go work with a big box company for a while. Like you'll get a bunch of state licenses, you'll get to know the lingo, how things work and whatnot. And after you work for a big box company, you know, if you're thinking of going independent, come approach us. We've got a lot of advice, content, training that we're going to be sharing. And we actually help radiologists set up in their own professional teleradiology theaters around the country. So I think those are kind of like the takeaway, the main takeaways.
So just to kind of bring this all to a close, I would just like to ask you, what is your absolute favorite part about being a teleradiologist?
I think the idea that one is I can be location independent. So, you know, if we want to go work from Florida, we haven't set up an office yet, but we plan to. Right now, I just have the Chicago office. Location independence, I think everybody understands that. Lifestyle, work-life balance. I mean, if I want to take time off and I've got an event, you know, I want to go to, and you know, I have a relative getting married, like we just block it off the calendar and just inform clients, and that's just how it is. Lifestyle, work balance. I'm extremely efficient in my practice. So because I have scribes, I can spend more time on each case, on analysis, imaging analysis. We're working in a team environment. So we believe we provide a much level higher quality of care because I got my scribe, you know, in touch with the radiology department if needed, QCing the images, you know, double checking my report, triple checking the report. So we tend to get zero voice recognition errors because we just don't use it. We have a human actually using my macros and typing things out. So, and plus I look at the report on a big 55-inch screen. So me and the scribe together are looking at things. We're like, oh yeah, that sentence doesn't seem right grammatically or whatever. And having that two-person authentication on the report provides a higher level of quality. So income diversification, location, work-life balance. I mean, all these things that come as part of the territory. Now, we work pretty hard, but it's totally worth it. I mean, this is just a great way of practicing. When I started med school, I never thought I'd be doing this. I just thought I'd be wearing the white coat, roaming the halls of a hospital. And now I can, you know, dress like this and come into work and have a great time. And, you know, we have a nice banter with the scribes and whatnot. And it's just great. So I would highly encourage people to explore different practice models. Right?
Great. Thank you.
Right. All right. Any other questions at all? I think that was a good summary of everything. And I want to tell all the teleradiologists out there, keep watching our channel. We're going to have YouTube videos, a blog, We have actually training courses on how to get into teleradiology, covering the different aspects of all the business aspects, the technical aspects. And if you're interested in working with scribes and building your own teleradiology center, we actually consult and help people do that as well. So thank you guys, and we look forward to seeing everyone on the next video.